countries in the Sahel have been banning news outlets and TV stations in recent months. Why is this so? They claim that these TV stations spread false news. While some people are in support of this new trend, others are certain that some of these countries in the Sahel are trying to hold information of what is going on in their respective countries. Do you think they are right? We are going to find out in today's video. But before we continue, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the new tourist channel so you never miss out on whatever is going on in Africa. In a recent turn of events, Mali has banned French TV channel LCI for 2 months over comments on the security situation. The decision came in reaction to remarks made by guest Assimi Goita, a French military officer and colonel in the Marine Corps, during LCI July 27 show, Wagner decimated in Mali, the Hand of Kiev, which the Malian authorities denounced. Numerous legal and regulatory infractions were observed during this broadcast, the government stated in its ruling, which was backed by the College of the Malian High Authority backed for Communication. The authority criticized Goita for having made disparaging remarks, gratuitous assertions, and false accusations of exactions against the Malian armed forces and their Russian partners. It added that the guest had also called for open support for terrorism under the pretext of supporting Ukraine against Russia. Hope you are aware of the fact that Mali is against Ukraine fighting Russia. So, the government sees any attempt of support for Ukraine as going against them. In the same light, note that the Malian government declared on August 15 that it was severing diplomatic ties with Ukraine, citing a boastful admission by a Ukrainian official that Kiev had given Malian rebels vital intelligence for a rebel attack. This resulted in the deaths of numerous Russian Wagner Group mercenaries and Malian soldiers. In late July, after 3 days of fighting, the northern Tuareg rebels claimed responsibility for the deaths of at least 84 mercenaries and 47 Malian soldiers. This was Wagner's worst setback since its contentious 2021 entry into the Sahel conflict on behalf of the Malian government. According to Andriy Yusov, the spokesperson for Ukraine's military intelligence agency, the Malian rebels had obtained all the information they needed, which allowed to carry out their operation against the Russian war criminals. He made this announcement to the public radio Suspilny on July 29. As Yusov's statement made its way to Mali and caused immediate backlash, the Ukrainian government tried to deny playing any role whatsoever in the deadly rebel assault, but failed to convince the Malian government, both Mali and its ally Niger, expressing deep shock about a friendly nation's involvement in an attack that cost dozens of Malian lives, swiftly ended all ties with the Ukrainian government. As Ukraine tries to fight off deadly Russian imperialism, one would have expected it to receive enthusiastic support from African states which have been resisting imperial aggression since their very inception. Indeed, it should have been easy for Ukraine to garner support from Africans, as Russia's assault on Ukraine is not only reminiscent of past imperial aggressions on Africa, but it also inflicted a heavy economic cost on the continent, leaving several countries worried about their next wheat shipment. However, Africans have chosen the country they want to support in this war, and it is clearly not Ukraine. Note that this is not the first time Mali is suspending a French channel. In March of 2022, Mali's ruling military junta ordered the suspension of France 24 television and RFI radio in the country, accusing the French public news service of reporting false allegations of abuse by the Malian army. In its response, France Media's Monde, the parent company of the two news organizations, said it deplored the decision and protested against the junta's unfounded accusations. We cannot talk about media suspensions in the Sahel without citing Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso suspended the BBC and U.S. public broadcaster Voice of America in April over their coverage of a report accusing its army of mass terminations. Broadcasts were stopped and the websites of both organizations were banned for 2 weeks. Burkina Faso's media regulator warned all media outlets in the following days against covering the report, threatening sanctions. We can see that this is a trend in the Sahel. It is clear that the French are using these channels to spread lies about these countries that have cut ties with them. France is looking for all means to show the world that these military rulers are not who they claim to be. But is this so? Let us know what you think in the comments. Why is France spreading false news? Between 2021 and 2023, 3 Sahelian countries, Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso, underwent military coups. The countries felt a political shift due to years of discontentment voiced by their populations, largely made up of young citizens. The Sahel region, composed mainly of former French colonies, has endured years of social and political instability with adverse consequences for their citizens. These countries shared a common message amidst the chaos. They disapproved of France's intervention in Sahelian national matters beyond the bounds of international cooperation. As a result, there has been a widespread anti-French mentality in the area, which may have contributed to real changes in Sahelian politics, diplomatic disputes, and rifts with France. At a speech at the University of Ouagadougou in Burkina Faso in November 2017, French President Emmanuel Macron pledged to change France-African ties and emphasized the importance of including more African youth in this new relationship. Macron restated his call for reform at the France-Africa Summit in 2021, 4 years after it was first announced. He went so far as to say that, as someone who was born during the era of colonization, his presidency will center on forging new national alliances based on reciprocal partnerships. This summit, in contrast to previous ones that invited heads of state, solely focused on youth social and political movements and entrepreneurs. The message was met by youth voicing their discontentment, disapproval, and non-belief. In the Sahel, good governance has been a challenge since the era of independence. Numerous regime changes in the region have left the nations in precarious socio-political and security environments. Within the last 2 decades, youth activism calling for improved governance has surged. Governments have historically avoided having open discussions with young people and kept them out of decision-making processes. It is common for major opposition parties in Sahelian countries to exclude members under 35. Social media use has been crucial in connecting young people in this digital age and amplifying their voices globally. Young Africans are mobilizing into activist groups, associations, and think tanks to demand that their leaders involve them in decision-making. Their leaders have started doing so. A good example is Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso, who is engaging with youths with the different youth programs he has launched. We have an interesting video on our channel which talks about the speech Traoré gave to students at the university. Make sure you watch that. Since social media has been connecting youths and helping them amplify their voices, France is trying to present itself as well by spreading false information to mislead them. The new generation of Africans sees France as a guardian of old policies since the colonial era, one that doesn't consider the voice of the general population. The triangular relationship between the French state, the African states, and the African population is being challenged by an informed and conscious generation that wants their leaders to put an end to neo-colonialism and focus on national sovereignty and interests. Macron's reform strategy during his first term did little to change the state of relations with the Sahel countries and only deepened the Sahelian youth's distrust. Is he now trying to gain back this trust by spreading lies? The audacious involvement of the youth has contributed to some of the political upheavals and diplomatic rifts that have diminished French influence and presence in the Sahel. Youth in Burkina Faso, Niger, and Chad flocked to the streets with signs and chanting demanding that France leave. The youth of the Sahel region spearheaded the appeal for a shift in global collaboration, particularly in French foreign policy within the region. These youths are probably going to bring about even more change in the relationship between France and the Sahel with these regime changes and the increasing anti-French discourse. We should also take note that France is suffering too as a result of fake news in the Sahel. It is almost impossible to quantify the reach of fake news in the Sahel, with much of the content forwarded on WhatsApp. Its roots are also difficult to determine. Many of the videos circulating mimic news broadcasts, and they often feature a robotic voice criticizing French troops or supporting the intervention of Russian soldiers. A recent example involves the false assertion made by a fake news broadcast that France was buying off political parties to support the military regime in Mali. One thing media outlets should start doing is verifying their facts before sharing vital information about a country. Only then are they going to be free from these suspensions. However, the recent suspension of Western media networks by the Sahel represents a dramatic change in the geopolitical environment. Although these choices could be interpreted as a challenge to Western power, They also show how much sovereignty and control over national narratives are becoming more and more desired. With the region still struggling to address difficult problems like poverty, terrorism, and climate change, it is more crucial than ever to influence public opinion. It remains to be seen if these steps will eventually result in more stability and autonomy. Whatever the case, we are here to continue giving you updates on the turnout of events. Do you think these media outlets are reporting more than they should? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Turn on notifications too so you get notified whenever we upload videos like this. Thanks for watching, and see you in our next video.